Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome you to a new podcast episode of today's Top Tech Leaders. The goal of this podcast is to share insights and knowledge of top CTOs and product leaders on their leadership and what they've learned throughout their journey. We'll cover management tips and tricks, organizational structures, tools, and best practices on how to successfully lead your product team. Our goal is to bring valuable insights to CTOs and CPOs of all seniorities. I myself am Mark Clemens, founder and CEO of Code Control and 9am. And for today's podcast, I'm very thrilled to have Stephan Hotz as a guest. Stephan is the CPO of Wandelbots, a very amazing company. I'm sure he will say a bit more about that later. His career started in business, focused on product management soon, where he's been working for over 10 years, done different positions in industry and geographies, hardware and software. So very excited to have you with us today here. Hello, Stephan.
Hey, Mark. Thanks a lot for having me today.
So before we get a bit into a topic and talk about how you do product management at Wandelbots, perhaps you can give us some insights on where you're based, what you're working on at the moment.
So I'm based in Berlin, but Wandelbots, the company I work for, is based in Dresden. So I'm forth and back quite a lot because we have, the majority of the team there in Dresden, and being together, of course, that now that we can do it again after COVID is a very important factor. So I do very much split my time between the home office and being on site in Dresden. And at Wandelbots, maybe I can quickly talk to that a little bit as well. We do build a software product that is aimed at democratizing the robotics industry. So when you think about industrial robots that you would know most typically from car manufacturing plants, the need to use robots in different manufacturing processes becomes more and more important, especially in developed industries. Think about Europe or the US. However, working with those robots, programming them, setting them up and using them in a day-to-day operation is very complicated. And that's exactly where we come in with our software to democratize it, to make it simpler and really open up using robots for everyone.
Really nice. So proper Industry 4.0 company and concept. And does that mean that then we go to the next topic or to go a bit further in, but does that mean that you do it for make robots available for any company, any size, or any certain target groups?
So we do have certain target groups right now because, as you will have
you need to start somewhere.
Product leaders before, it is important to find focus, right? So we, of course, have also found focus in a sense that right now we primarily work with companies that are so-called system integrators. Those are companies that do automation projects for end users. So you could go to a system integrator and say, I want to set up a line that produces something and at the end it gets packaged, and I want to have a few robots that do that, and they would do that as a project for you. Hardware, software, everything out of one hand. And those are our customers for the software product. And then secondly, we also focus on enterprises that are early in their automation journey, that don't have a lot of in-house experience yet, that really benefit from a simplified fast access software stack, and that's where we do projects as well right now.
Super interesting. Okay, I have already a ton of questions, but I need to follow a bit my script. So let's get a bit back to your career, and we want to dig a bit deeper into how your career developed. But perhaps you can give us a quick understanding how you would describe it in 3 words.
In 3 words, product. Different industries. Sorry, that's 2 words. And outcome focus. That's again 2 words.
Outcome focus. But very nice. Okay, outcome focus. Very good. That's the first. So very interesting. Interested in hearing a bit more about that. So when you look into your career, and we spoke a bit about it before, you have a background in business, if I remember right, then went into different kind of hardware topics, and then got into this digital Wandelbots thing. How did that happen? Tell us a bit about your story.
So I think as many people, I got into product not with a plan, right? That kind of sort of happened. So as you said, I did originally study business. I'm from Austria. After university, I had a chance to do a graduate program with Hewlett Packard in Spain, where for the first half year, we were rotated around different departments to kind of find where there would be a fit and interest. And I ended up working in product marketing for printers. So that's already where my business background connected with the product world for the first time. From there, and I think working in product, understanding users, understanding customers, connecting technology and business is something that just was always something that I was good at and that I enjoyed doing, right? So it was kind of natural that my career progressed along the product tangent, so to speak. And I do genuinely enjoy cool products, right? It excites me when we build something, I can look at it, I can touch it, or now with software, of course, I can use it. And that's a big motivating factor as well. I then progressed into hardware, so chemicals and equipments from a product management perspective, and eventually ended up working now in my last 3 jobs and now at Wandelbots in progressive leadership stages as well in software product, which was a natural transition. Also moving to Berlin, there's just so many opportunities here in software product. So that was really also a geographical development for me.
And so with this background in hardware product management and before business, how would you say that impact your product management these days? Is it different? Did it help? Does it bring you a certain edge?
Yeah, I think it is, especially when you think what I do now or what me and the teams are working on now. Obviously, we make software for hardware, a very deep industry hardware environment, right? Where the hardware plays an important component of the success of the final experience that a user or a customer has, right? And we have very deep and knowledgeable robotics experts or in the company as well, for good reason, because we need to understand that world to be successful in what we do, right? So I think me having had experience working in product purely for hardware as well, where you have longer development cycles, where you have less room to experiment and test things out, because it's much more expensive than when you do that with software. Having that understanding definitely also helps me now with the team, and especially with the customers and partners that we talk to, that don't always have that upfront understanding of a very puristic approach to software development.
Because in product, you don't do as many MVPs and
exactly right. I mean, like when we are in a world of pure software development, it's very easy to talk about sprints and design sprints and MVPs and iterations and prototypes and tests. When we go to a very traditional system integrator, they don't know that language, right? And we have to bridge that gap when we want to work with them.
Interesting. Regarding that, you mentioned before you have the system integrators as your target group right now, and it right away popped to my mind was car manufacturers that sell to car dealerships instead of to the end customer. Do you have an issue when defining the customer need to understand really what your end user needs, or is the system integrator such a good aggregator of this information that you get enough information out of it to really drive the right priorities and features?
I think both, right? So they are an excellent proxy. They have a very deep understanding of the market and their end customers. So we learn a lot from the system integrators. But we do purposefully also engage directly with the end customers. And even to the extent that we select development customers that we directly go in, set up the cell, and build the software, so do both a little bit, both hardware and software work in a development environment, because yes, it is very important to have that direct end user exposure as well for the product development teams.
And can I imagine it a bit like I would say, digital agency that tries to pitch a usage of an industrial robot to a potential customer saying, hey, we got these Wandelbot guys and we can actually do it? Or how does the sell work?
For the system integrator?
Yeah.
So I think they are, especially in Germany, they're in a position that they're overflowing with requests, right? Like you have a very significant shortage of skilled labor in the manufacturing industries. There is a huge pressure, especially on SMB or medium type manufacturing companies, to automate away because they just can't find the people anymore to do the work, right? You talk about jobs like welding, sanding, packaging pallets, packaging boxes, things that robots can do. But from them, the step to move from today someone doing the job manually to set up a robot, it's, of course, there's an investment that comes with it, but there's also that setting that up and making it work reliably is very difficult. So the system integrators don't really, I mean, most of the ones that we work with, they don't have a real need to do a lot of active marketing and selling. Their books are full and they get more requests than they can handle.
Okay, crazy. First thing that popped to my mind was new business idea. You need to do an industrial robot subscription model, like the car subscription, to make it easier available for these companies. Because
Great
I think,
idea.
especially welding, sanding, all of these topics are, I mean, you need to be a proper size of a company to be willing to invest into a robot to test if it works in your flow. I mean, it's a substantial investment.
And that's why the system integrators are such important gatekeepers, because once they've successfully set something up with a company, there's a very high trust level that they have, right, into the companies and into their customer base.
So do I understand right? In the end, the system integrators are in a way your customers because you drive their costs down, so they have a better way of faster selling more industrial robotics into companies and have successful outcomes.
Yeah, it's not just about cost, right? It's we simplify their developers' experience. So imagine, right? They set up an automation project that involves robots with different hardware, maybe a conveyor belt, maybe a cell, other hardware components, and then of course there's software that powers all these things, right? And our stack really simplifies the way they can do that, so it speeds them up. It helps them create turnaround projects faster, and I think this is a real differentiator. It helps them to create a very simple end user experience, right? So an end user experience that is so simple that anyone can walk up and work with that robot, which is also not the case today, right? So that's another key differentiator that we bring in.
Okay, I just want to say, because I can imagine you build kind of an operating system or a translation layer that you need to define your priorities. What do I build, right? And if you have all of the different customers of system integrators, there's always the question, what do I prioritize? I mean,
exactly, and there we are also a bit, we are flexible in the sense that we take on certain projects in certain areas, right, where we see the biggest opportunities. We of course also at this point have system integrators that we've been working with for a while, where there is an established relationship, right, and to be fairly honest, it's also a bit of a journey, right? There's many cases and projects where our developers also still contribute to the end user product, and it's not the system integrators 100% doing everything themselves. So it's a journey, right, that we are on.
But interesting, because it reminds me of the good old real entrepreneurship of back in the days, where, I don't know, there is an agency, gets the first customer that is in one industry, builds something for them, builds on top, and afterwards has a product that they can sell to the whole industry. So you do take this iterative approach by identifying the right customers, building with them, and then extending and extending.
Exactly, that's the idea, right? And I think this is very much due to the fact that the industry that we are in, or that we're trying to democratize, to not use the word disrupt, is a very traditional one. When you look at the tech stacks that are currently in use, right, you sometimes wonder, right, how users can even use those end products. So it's something that you don't do it overnight. Let's put it like that, right? It takes time. You need the right partners, you need patience, and you need a good cadence of projects to get there.
And are you externally financed, or is it bootstrapped, the company?
No, we are externally financed.
Okay, because you need to have the right investors as well, right?
We do.
Investors that are willing to take the time.
Yes, we do
So,
have.
so we,
We are fortunate to have a very supportive, visionary group of investors and board members.
fantastic, yeah. Because I think there's always the struggle, right? Especially if you have investors, and from the business side, you try to push a lot and say you need to ship, because everyone thinks of I don't know,
Yeah.
TikTok quickly coming live, going
Yeah.
big, Clubhouse being big for really few minutes, and I think you really build a foundation. You really you say democratize, but you disrupt, but with consistency,
And it needs a
resilience.
certain, an industry like this, you don't disrupt or democratize it overnight, like you say, right? It needs a long breath, and I think that's what we're in for.
So cool. And how do you do it within the team? I guess product marketing plays a role. The fourth back communication plays a role. Do you take the full team on board with this, or you split out a product marketing part that is kind of on the sales side, or how are you organized within the company?
So we don't have a dedicated product marketing function. That's something that I'd say, in the daily doing, split between the product managers and the dedicated marketing team that we have. I think one of the force fields that we find ourselves in is, on the one hand, helping those identified partners with concrete projects that we are realizing, right? And making sure that we also keep a focus on building up that universal product layer that is reusable, that we can use again in projects, right? Because that is a force field that is difficult for teams to navigate. Because at the end of the day, you have to prioritize, you have to make hard calls, right? And when you're in a project engagement, sometimes taking a step back and saying, okay, we're going to do an extra round here to make sure this becomes universally usable, can be a difficult call to make for the teams. So I think this is probably one of the challenges, not a challenge, but something that we face, right? And I think for anyone doing deep tech with multiple stacks, right, where you have hardware, multiple third-party hardwares that you need to address, a complicated software layer that where robotics, movements, but also software itself, user interfaces come in, where you just need to be very vigilant to make the right calls.
Okay, very interesting. And how would you define your own role within the organization? What is your, I mean, obviously product management, but what is your main driver, and how would you say you lead the team, or what is your biggest driver on how to lead it?
So I think my main focus is to make sure that we translate the very strong and compelling organizational vision, which is, let's democratize robotics, right? And has been since the company has been founded, into a compelling product vision that is flanked with good, strong principles that we can all adhere to, and work with the team on a day-to-day basis to translate that into a strategy. Strategy meaning, what do we do? And more importantly, what do we not do in the next couple of steps, right? And for that, so those are kind of how I see the cadence, where I really am in the driver's seat, together with making sure we have a strong group of PMs that can be in the cross-functional teams with designers and developers, of course, and provide topical and functional leadership to those groups, right? Empowering my team to be those, how do you say, stewards of the cross-functional team through their development journey.
And can you only work with people that are big on delayed gratification? Because I can imagine it sometimes takes a bit of time to get this feedback. Oh yes, it's really nice, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be a little bit into what we do in terms of the industry and the area, right? You have to really like that combination of software and hardware products. I think that's an important prerequisite. You have to have a thick skin, because it is a very traditional industry that we are in, right? Where I say coming in with a very classic PM approach, using the usual jargon and lingo, probably won't get you very far, right? When you're fresh in the door with a new customer or a new user. And delayed gratification, I'm not so sure, because there are small wins along the way that we can celebrate, right? Like when we do concrete projects and they end up in a cell being installed at an end customer, and we really help that customer. That's a nice win, right? Even though it might not be that huge, okay, we've shot this thing to the moon just yet, but there are small wins along the way that we all get to celebrate together.
Cool. And we had, and I think we spoke about this, we had the CPO of Clue in the podcast as well. And I thought it was an amazing story that she told in the way that she does product management. And she mentioned one part is for her, the product managers need to know and read P&L and make the decisions P&L based. I guess for you, it's a bit different now, because there's no P, there's probably only L, or not that much P yet.
There is some. But you're right? I think that's not, so it's important, right? I mean, we are a company, right? And yes, we are
need money.
We are externally financed, and we are on a longer term journey, but that doesn't mean that we don't care about P&L, right? So we do, of course, operate on the basis of budgets. We try to put the right priorities. We also say no to things, right? When projects and opportunities present themselves. And we have to be selective with what we spend on and what we don't spend on as well. But I think what is a correct observation, that for me right now, adoption of a universal product is the biggest priority, more so than, for example, monetization, right? That we will focus on that. But if I would have to choose between the two, adoption would be the first priority.
So that's kind of the North Star that you take currently, to make sure what is the right priority, what is the right industry, what is the right project that we want to go deeper into.
Correct.
Super interesting. Now, I think from my side, we're almost already at the end. I find it so incredibly interesting what you do at Wandelbots, and also something that I think most people don't have touch points that often with. I guess if people have any questions, they can reach out to you on LinkedIn.
Be happy to.
And then I would have one last question, and is if you have any advice for other technical leaders or product managers, things that you've learned throughout your journey where you say, well, if I would have known that before, or thanks God I followed this, what would that be? And if you have any recommendations for books, podcasts, blogs or the like, then also as well.
Recommendations. So with everyone, with product, you're often in the middle of things and everyone's trying to talk to you or wants something from you, right? You're kind of at the center of attention. The one thing you can never lose sight of is what the end users and customers need. That is your number one priority as a PM. Understand the market, understand the business you're in, and understand your customers and users, and you will probably get it right. In terms of books and what kind of influenced my thinking, so I really enjoyed anything that Marty Kagan has written. So Inspired, Empowered, the typical book cadence there. That's definitely a recommendation for anyone in product or who aspires to go.
Agreed.
And then I also read a blog called Productify, that is available on Substack, that I find very interesting, that has a lot of good insights.
Cool. We will definitely put them into the show notes. Thank you so much, Stephan. Super interesting. And thank you everyone as well for listening in today and listening to today's Top Tech Leaders podcast. Please subscribe to the channel. Please give us feedback. Let us know what we can do better, what kind of people you would like to hear with us as guests. And until next time, keep coding, keep leading, keep product managing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Have a good day.
You too.